Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're talking about The Iron Claw. Sean Durkin's new film is out, starring Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich, the head of the Von Erich wrestling family. We're also talking about Maestro. Bradley Cooper's film is out. It's his follow-up to A Star is Born, which got a lot of praise, but then it comes out, and film Twitter flips out about it. I'm excited to talk about it. It's over on Netflix if you haven't seen it. We're going to talk about our top 10 films of the year. A contentious list. So contentious. So many contenders this year. We could not only could we not nail it down, we couldn't even nail down what day to do it. It's today. Today is the day. We're talking about the top 10 list. I'm excited to tell you guys what our favorites were. And before we get to all of that, we need to start with the news. Our first story this week: Scream 7 loses director Christopher Landon. Oh no! Following the firing of Melissa Barrera and the voluntary exit of Jenna Ortega, director Christopher Landon is out of Scream 7. Is Spyglass doomed, Andy? Is there ever going to be another Scream movie? Where are we going with this?
There absolutely will. Those movies are too profitable and make too much money to not continue to do them. This version of the cash cow is going to have to be on pause, which is a shame because I think the most recent one, Scream 6, Scream 6, I think was actually the most profitable in the entire series. So they were poised to just keep churning these out and making money, printing money. But now since we've lost our two leads, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, it makes sense that we would the whole project's probably going to fall apart, and anyone attached is not going to want to stick with it for the time being.
Christopher Landon is the horror specialist behind Happy Death Day and Freaky. Hollywood Reporter's got the review here. And he would have been taking over the directing team for Radio Silence, who was the directing duo who was directing Scream and Scream 6, Scream 5 and Scream 6. They previously did, what's that movie with Hide and Seek? Is that the name of it? It's actually not a bad little horror feature. Anyway, they got these movies going. Now they're moving on to bigger and better. Christopher Landon said it sucks and that everybody should stop yelling about it on Twitter. He also said this was not my decision to make. Jury's still out on where Scream's headed, I guess. They're probably going to take at least a year off, right, Andy? I mean, that's what I'd be doing. Just try to.
I mean, you might have to reboot.
Next.
You might have to reboot again, which is weird having done such a recent reboot just a couple of years ago. But all that's left are really weak supporting characters that most people don't really remember. Your headliners are gone, so you might have to just reinvent the wheel again. But luckily, horror allows you the license to do that.
I think they should go in a radically different direction and hire Kyle Edward Ball of Skinamarink fame to produce Scream, whatever new Skinema Screamarink. We'll see what happens next for Scream. It just seems to be like a series of worse compounding problems, real snowball problem over there, and obviously not good for Paramount, who is really heading that. They're already not having a great year. This doesn't help. But who is having a good year, I'll tell you, is Amazon. Amazon Prime. Jeff Bezos is having a great year because Prime Video ads are coming on January 29th. Amazon just announced this to everybody. Did you not hear? Did you not get the email? Yeah, they're putting ads on Amazon Prime. Andy, what do you know about this?
A belated Christmas present to us all, indeed. Ads coming to Amazon Prime. Now, this is different from other streamers who have done this. When Netflix introduced their ad tier, it was cheaper and it was something you could opt into. Amazon Prime's taking a different approach where they're forcing ads on you onto their existing price tier. And if you want ad free, you have to pay an additional $3. So they are making the ad tier the standard basic tier of their programs. It's a little bit different approach. They claim they're not going to be very invasive or be less than traditional TV and other streamers. We'll see, but this is definitely frustrating.
I'm genuinely considering canceling Prime. I mean that, and I've told people that, and they're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean you're thinking about canceling Prime? Like everybody has Amazon Prime, but really, I don't use Amazon Music. I've got Spotify, right? I like Prime Video fine, but I already have a handful of other services. And on top of the absurd number of disparaging stories regarding workers' rights and how people are treated in Amazon warehouses, despite all of those, my packages don't even show up on time anymore. Is it just me, or does Amazon kind of suck? You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. Are you agree with me on this?
I mean, I've noticed that too. When they first started, you could order a package at 10 in the morning and have it by noon, and now it's taken several days, and now the allure and advantage of having Prime, and now plus having to pay $3 more for the ad tier. But what a lot of these streamers are getting back to is what traditional TV was, because it was basically a double pay system. You got paid to run a show, and then you got paid again to put ads during that same show. And the streamers have been missing out on ad revenue for a long time, and now it's upon us.
I'm so over it. I don't want to watch ads. I've been enjoying not watching ads, and I appreciate that Amazon has an option for me. It is absurd that I have to take the extra step and opt into that now. And if I don't, like, I'll just continue getting content and they'll just get, ad revenue on top of what I already pay. Like, I think that's super lame. I don't like it. Whatever. I don't know. Any other takes? Obviously, I'm not canceling Amazon, right, Andy? You're not either. Anything else on this? I wish I had more to say.
I mean, it's just more of the of what we've seen, that the ads are here to stay, and every streamer is going to have an ad tier.
Keep it here on Off Script for more from Amazon Prime. The Color Purple trounces Aquaman 2 at the box office this weekend. Big surprise, I think. I think Trend said Color Purple may not crush it. I didn't know who was going to do it in like the flurry of films that have come out over the holiday. Somehow, Color Purple rises to the top. Andy, what's the story here?
Man, well, the box office is so different this year compared to most weekends, and especially last year. Aquaman, the first Aquaman, which came out in 2018, was a huge hit, made over $1 billion. DC's highest grossing film kind of ever in the last 10 years or so. It sinks, as the outlets have said, and The Color Purple is finding an audience. I was looking at times, I remember looking on like Christmas Eve or like Christmas Day, and everything was sold out from like the 4:30 show into the evening. Completely packed, completely sold out. It's a big hit. The musical is back. Between this and Wonka and next month's Mean Girls, we might have a bit of a musical resurgence upon us.
Just a couple weeks ago, I saw that new Color Purple trailer, the last one, in theaters, and it plays great. It looks super good. And I think what I like about how Color Purple has been marketed is that they not only tell people that they're musical, unlike Wonka and Mean Girls, who are both leaning away from it, they lean all the way in and say it's a bold musical. It is a bold reimagining of a musical. It is new and exciting and different. And that's really grand. And I think like when people go to the theaters, they want that big show experience. And believe it or not, Color Purple has it, I think. I'm looking forward to watching it. Like, I feel like I've seen good reviews. I don't know. I think Color Purple might be a W all around. It's produced by Oprah and Steven Spielberg. Big names attached. Couldn't be more pleased. I think not only is it a W for The Color Purple, it's a W for musicals everywhere, and it makes Wonka and Mean Girls, who again lean away from it, look a little foolish in retrospect. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's worth leaning in sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've said, this has been a down year for the superhero pick. A lot of people think that it's done. We're over the superhero era. I don't think that that's true at all. It's just been a bit of a bummer year, but it has been interesting what kinds of films have been big this year. We have things like the Tomorrow movie, Barbie, Oppenheimer. It's definitely a different landscape. It is important to point out that we still have not recovered from pre-pandemic levels at the movies. We're down almost 40% still from 2019, which was kind of a banner year in the cinema box office. It's been recovering since the pandemic, but it's still happening.
Yeah,
still not there yet.
Not quite. In smaller news, Illumination's Migration is their smallest opening to date. I don't have much to say about that. And All of Us Strangers, the new Andrew Hay film, which is Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, right? Opened in 4 locations in New York and LA, and it's doing great in the 4 places it opened, and the rest of us just have to wait. Hopefully it'll come around. We will cover it probably when it comes to our town on Off Script Film Review. One more story this week, something special before we get into the top 10s, I think. I'm excited to talk about this. I saw this on Twitter. I don't think we've ever talked about this before. President Barack Obama released his favorite movies of 2023, right? And I thought, well, hold on. Why not? Why not take a look at, our former fearless leader's favorite films, and just compare maybe to what we think. Andy, can you read this from over there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had his top three and then other favorites. His top three were Rustin, Leave the World Behind, An American Symphony. And then his other favorites were The Holdovers, Blackberry, Oppenheimer, American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Monster, Past Lives, Air, Polite Society, and 1001. Some of these I haven't seen. A couple of these I haven't really heard of before.
Yeah.
Very strange list. I've heard Rustin is very good at. That's about activist, with starring Coleman Domingo. I have not seen Leave the World Behind, but I heard it was kind of Netflix garbage. And American Symphony is also a Netflix film, but this sounds like the list of someone who didn't really go to the movies. Like, where is Killers of the Flower Moon? Where is Barbie? So many other big movies, and like I said, Leave the World Behind was not well received. And someone said that they saw one of his daughters at the opening of one of these movies, and she's the reason that one of these movies is on his list. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, it's weird.
The meanest one I think would be Polite Society, because that one is actually aimed at young women. So if it was like, oh yeah, his daughter went to Polite Society, and that's like, oh, hold on, Polite Society actually looked good. I didn't see it, but I think it's on Peacock now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see these top three he's got here. Rustin, Leave the World Behind, American Symphony. He explains that his studio produced those. Fine. He even puts a big fat line break. That's cool. I get it. Like, shameless plug. And hey, Coleman Domingo got nominated for a Globe for Rustin, I think. So like, for what it's worth, there's something good going on there. The top half of his list reads great. Holdovers, Blackberry, Oppenheimer, American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall. Okay, yeah. All right, Past Lives, I'll take it. Gets a little weird with Monster and 1001. Have not talked about those movies ever on this show, I think, and we do a movie podcast every single week. And then Air, the Nike film. I guess, the things I'm surprised to not see, I'm going to say, are things like Killers of the Flower Moon, right? Or maybe Barbie. Like, I thought that might make an appearance. Holdovers makes sense. No Spider-Man is a little weird, but respect. I think he had the first one on his list back when that came out. No Skinamarink. It's my favorite joke to make, but come on. Like, it's the most radical, one of the most radical ones. No Mission Impossible. Hard to believe. I guess it's been a great year at the movies, and this list feels a little ginned up, I think.
Yeah. Like I said, Obama, he is in the film production business now. He has a partnership with Netflix. He has his own production company. I think there's definitely trying to appeal to certain other filmmakers, or I think this is definitely being like, look at the streamers, look at what the good that Netflix has done. It's a real weird list. No respect for me.
You know what would make the industry better? Less woke, more original screenplays. That's what we need. That's what Obama's missed here.
Why is Air on here? Why is the corporate slog
and Blackberry
and yeah. The corporate biopic, like how are these even movies that get made?
Hey, you know what? I don't know. He could have gotten weird with something like Zone of Interest, though I suppose even he can't get his hands on that film. A fine list, I suppose. We'll be talking about our top 10s here in between our reviews. But first, we need to get to our first film of the week, I think. We've got to move this along. I'm excited to talk about this movie. I have tried to go in knowing as little as possible about this story. I have a couple friends who are into wrestling and also are local to Dallas, where the events of this film take place. So I try to go in fresh. I'm excited to introduce you to it and talk about it. The movie is The Iron Claw. So The Iron Claw is the story of Kevin Von Erich of the Von Erich wrestling family dynasty. Played by Zac Efron, Von Erich is a beast of a man, huge, hulking creature who is a wrestler and is working his way up to become the world wrestling champion. His father is a brutal man, former wrestler as well, who's very excited for his son to move up, but also encourages his other sons who have this long, goofy blonde hair, and then, like, one's got an odd bowl cut. All of them are encouraged to get into wrestling or at least some kind of sport. And some form or fashion. There's Kevin, there's Kiri, there's Carrie, there's David, and Mike. That's them in order. And they are all working towards the same goal of getting the family belt. But there's a little something odd about the Von Erich family, a family curse that they say in the film, that disaster may befall them right when they're right next to success, right? Just like what happened to their dad. And slowly over the course of the film, we discovered that I don't know. Family brings us together, but boy, you can experience some challenges. It is a unique watch, and I think it might be some of Zac Efron's best work, along with Sean Durkin, who directed this feature. Excited to talk about it. Andy, what did you think of The Iron Claw?
I thought this was really phenomenal, and it had I had high hopes for it, and it definitely stood up. It's an examination of this curse that runs through their family. It's kind of the curse that's brought about by their father. It's one of these kind of self-fulfilling prophecies, but it's essentially about these really unrealistic expectations that get put on all the family. The father has like his favorites. He was like, well, you know my favorite. And he literally lists his favorite kids like 1 through 4, and he's like, those rankings can always change.
Those rankings
and
can
he's
change.
always pushing these kids harder and harder. There's a scene where Kevin Von Erich, Zac Efron's character, is clearly very hurt outside of the ring. It takes a long time to get up from a bump, and he's like, "You got to get up faster than that. You think you're gonna get the belt?" And it just shows, like, it shows us what the curse is, and really, it's essentially about toxic masculinity, to use a buzzword, but it shows us how those kinds of expectations on young men can really destroy them and their families. I thought it was really phenomenal, really incredible acting from Zac Efron, both a physical transformation and just he's the emotional heart of the film. And man, it's a tragic story. It's almost too tragic to be believable. Like, if this were fiction, you'd tell someone to, like, kind of lighten it up. Like, dude, you can't have this happen. But that's really what went down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If this were fiction, some screenwriter along the way would have been like, "You got to edit this and tighten this up. This doesn't work, and this doesn't come together. People aren't going to like." It's crazy, and I think that's part of what's so interesting about it. But to me, more interestingly, is like our setting and, like you said, our character of kind of masculinity in this movie. Wrestling is such a fascinating medium to set a story in, right? And it's usually fantastic in cinematic form. You can think of Scorsese with Raging Bull. Obviously, you've got your Rocky Balboa. Even like Clint Eastwood, right? $1 Million Baby. Like, you can tell incredible stories inside of a ring. And although those are boxing films, like, wrestling is not all that dissimilar, right? Certainly a similar cinematic setting. And I think Sean Durkin does such a fantastic job of capturing functional performance, like by these actors in a wrestling setting where they are performing. Like, it kind of works out great, like, you don't have to worry about Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White like making a punch look convincing, but what they do have to do is look like these just absolutely ripped monsters, which they do. I can't believe the condition that Zac Efron is in this movie. Like, not only from like acting ability, but just physical, like, outrageous ability. I remember seeing an interview from him after he did Baywatch, and he said that he didn't want to look like he looked in Baywatch really ever again, because it was awful, and he had to eat like this incredibly specific diet, and he had to deny himself all these things he likes in his life, and he had to be dehydrated so your muscles poke out, and it was like, I can't do that. Now he is so much further from that in this movie. It is bananas. He looks like he's halfway to like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's huge. And meanwhile, like, Jeremy Allen White is also real big. Harris Dickinson, the third brother, not quite as large. And God, who's the fourth one? Stanley Simons is Mike. He is like the leanest of all of them. He's the big softy, which gives you like this good broad range of brothers who all have different like ability and interest, I think.
Yeah, it's really part of the tragedy is that you have the 3 brothers, the older ones, who are, all going to be in the ring. Like, they're athletic, they're big, they're tough guys, they're definitely built for this kind of thing. And then Mike he's the artist of the family. He plays guitar, he's in a band, he plays a bunch of different instruments, but because of the pressure of the family and specifically their father, he gets roped into a career that he probably shouldn't be in, and doesn't like. He's a big guy because they're all big guys in this family, but he doesn't have like the size and the mass, and he ends up getting hurt pretty easily in the film.
I'm such a big fan of like the abusive dad in this movie. Obviously, nobody should be a fan of abusive father, but Holt McCallany is so great as this like Texas rancher, used to be a wrestler, thinks he knows everything dad, whose like hair is dyed this goofy yellow, like is fake as his hair color, but like he has such commanding presence over the family and specifically over the boys. Meanwhile, Mom Martierney is like totally on the back burner. She's like, "Well, you boys need to sort it out with yourselves. I'm doing my own thing, you know." And like slowly over the course of the film, as things begin to unravel, the two of them like retreat into themselves more and more. He just gets more bitter and he gets harder on the boys and just keeps applying pressure, like his signature Iron Claw wrestling move. And meanwhile, like Martierney devolves into this like heartbreaking scene. She's fantastic. Really fantastic performances from our cast all around. Like really, really tremendous.
I think something else that I really liked about the film is it takes the viewer into the world of wrestling to better understand it. Because if you're not a fan of wrestling, a lot of people, well, why would I watch that? It's fake, and they take us into the. Well, yes, it's scripted, but it is a performance. You're there to put on a show and win over the audience. And that's what really is about, like these belts and things. It's like, who can be the best entertainer? Who can draw the biggest crowd, sell the most tickets, sell the most concessions? And it's interesting because Zac Efron's character is really good in the ring, but he's really terrible on the mic. Like when he goes to do the promos of like, this Saturday, I'm going to be meeting up with whoever, and I'm doing that whole Sunday kind of. He's terrible. He got stutters. He's not confident. And then the taller David Von Erich, played by Harris Dickinson, like he's the opposite. He's much better. He's a much better showman, and he kind of helps bring that around. But it brings the audience into that world to understand it a little bit better about what they do, why it's important, and what they're trying to achieve. Because it's not a fight like a boxing or a wrestling match or an MMA or something like that. It's a different kind of entertainment.
Yeah, like sports wrestling entertainment, right? Yeah, that's the idea. And it's such an interesting idea to prop your characters up against, this idea that like if you just work harder, if you just push harder, like you push out one more set, you run one more lap, like you take one more bump, like you'll get there. And meanwhile, like you're in a setting where like ultimately like having persona matters, and being able to perform matters, and like having gravitas on camera matters. Like really interesting, like, and a fascinating little like blender to drop your characters into and just whirl them all up and run them into each other, and it happens. Like fists fly in this movie, people fight, like there's a bit of violence for sure, but in the same way, like you get so much of the energy of like what I think wrestling entertainment should be. Like some of the promos that are reshot in here with like, I don't want to give any wrestlers away if you're a fan, but they have so much energy to them, like, and the music drives up under them, right? And Durkin just like has these long slow pull-ins on the ring, and these TVs playing stuff. Like it just has such a vibe, like, and it's such a delight to watch. Not to mention like a lot of classic rock in the soundtrack, which is great, and of course 70s Dallas, which looks like a great place to hang out. I'm sure it was. Hang out at the Sportatorium in 1976. Everything just feels very like authentic, and just takes you right back to your Von Erich ranch.
Yeah, one thing that I think this story is very tragic. If you know what, I'm not going to spoil any of it here, but the movie does still manage to end on a triumph, end on our characters growing and kind of breaking the bonds of generational trauma. But it is at a high price. But it because some people are like, where is this? How is this story going to end? Like, where do we end? But we do, like most movies, we end on a triumph. I think.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if you cut out or not for a second. I thought I lost you. No, I think overall, like Iron Claw ends up ending in a place that feels uniquely satisfying, and It's a bit of a magic trick because if you've heard, loose reviews from people like us who are like, wow, there's a lot happening in this movie. Like, it can seem really daunting, can seem really intimidating. But, like, I think there's a soft spot at the center of this movie that's really gratifying once you kind of drive to it. Also, like I said at the top, like, tremendous performance from Efron. I think it's his best work. I'm sure there are people out there who are like, no, High School Musical's his best work. Respect. Really, though, he is going to a new place, like, with a movie like this. If he can keep turning out movies like this, I don't know what he'll do next. Really fantastic all around. Andy, any other thoughts for recommendations?
I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend The Iron Claw?
Absolutely. It's definitely one of the year's best. Transformative performance by Zac Efron and the rest of the cast as well. Jeremy Allen White, who, of course, we love from The Bear. Harris Dickinson, who was in last year's Triangle of Sadness. Hope McCallany's always good. Very powerful story. Really takes you into this like kind of down and dirty world of professional wrestling and people trying to make it big in this career. Bit of a heartbreaker, but highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think Iron Claw's super good. Great movie to take dad to. And I know it's like, hold on, generational trauma, but like really it's going to be like classic rock and like wrestling and like all of those are things that like dudes will connect to. And I think like ultimately the message is not going to rattle anybody's cage. It's a good time. Like it's surprisingly good, I think. A little long, but not nearly as, I should say, much more engrossing than the other feature we're going to talk about and in this episode, Maestro, which we need to get to. But first, before we do, we need to talk about something that's been particularly heated. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, we have been working on this thing day and night. We've been down in the lab, like cooking up the best possible lists we can come up with, and I'm excited to reveal. Andy, do you want to do the honors?
It's time for the death of cinema. And we're going to be doing our top 10 of the year. Yeah. Finally, at long last. Woo. It seems like everyone does their top 10s in like late November, and we always feel like we're late to the punch. There's still a few movies out to see that we want to get around to, and it's just not going to happen this year, like The Color Purple, Ferrari, The Zone of Interest. So those could have changed the settings, but I think we've gotten the most of these. It's been an incredible year for film. We had a really hard time keeping it to 10. Easily could have done a top 15 or a top 20. It's nice to see a year filled with this many kind of good and different movies, because the last couple of years it was actually a little bit light. I remember 2021 only having a top 9 because I didn't think there were 10 films that deserved it. So, Zach, why don't you start off with your... I don't know, where do you want to start? Your top 5?
I was gonna say we always struggle to get through these. I'm gonna throw a real curveball at you this year. Can I just read my 10? Are we good with that? I think we're all adults here. Like the audio listeners will appreciate it. They don't even need to talk through these. Can I read my 10 and kind of just quickly talk through each of them, and then you do your 10, then we'll do honorables and disappointments?
Absolutely, yeah. I think our honorable mentions and worst of the year and our new disappointments of the year is also maybe more fun. So yeah, go ahead.
God, yeah, I'm realizing I didn't complete the assignment when it came to worst of the year, but I'll find it along the way. Yeah, no, my top 10 in reverse order. Number 10, David Fincher's The Killer. It's on Netflix. Tremendous work. Michael Fassbender. A really good time, though I am admittedly a Fincher stan. Number 9, The Boy and the Heron. Hayao Miyazaki's return has been tremendous. I again am a big fan. I love The Boy and the Heron. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse at number 8. The follow-up to Into the Spider-Verse was unique. If anything, it would have been higher on the list, but I didn't like that it felt like one half of a whole. Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid at number 7. A really odd pick, but dude, I was so charmed by that movie, and I'm still thinking about it, and I just saw it got added to Paramount with Showtime, and I'm probably going to check it out. Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos at number, 6? We just saw this a few weeks ago. It is so immersive, takes you to another world. It is a portal through the looking glass. You should totally check out Poor Things if you can stomach it. My God, content warning. Asteroid City from Wes Anderson, number 5. Again, I said with 10 and 9 that I like who I like. I'm a Wes Anderson guy. Wes Anderson people put Asteroid City on their top 10s. You know what? I'm not ashamed of it, but I want you to understand why it's there. I think it's great. Number 4, The Holdovers. Alexander Payne, I'm finding, has an odd past, and as I learn more about him, I'm finding that I am increasingly fascinated that The Holdovers is so tremendous. It's weird to watch a movie in theaters and know it's going to be a Christmas film you watch year after year, and that's what that movie is. Number 3 is Barbie, Greta Gerwig's feature. Was a surprise, I think, to everybody. Nobody really knew what to expect, but I didn't expect something so eloquent. I think it's really tremendous. Great work all around. Number 2 is Oppenheimer. A lot of people have Oppenheimer at number 1. Chris Nolan is a close number 2 behind, of course, Killers of the Flower Moon from Martin Scorsese. I think that movie is so neat, and I can't remember the last time I watched a movie that was 3+ hours, and not only was I tuned in the whole time, like, I'm looking forward to watching it again. Really incredible work. That's my top 10. I hope that wasn't too long. I just figured I'd blitz it, and then
That was quick. That was quick.
Yeah, like, that's good. Like that's, you're up next. So yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. And what I like is that we have some of the same things, but we also have some very different things, and also in very different positions. My number 10 is going to be a controversial take, is Skinamarink, the unique horror film from Kyle Edward Ball, newcomer. This movie scared me so much and scared a lot of people. It was a phenomenon. Was made for $15,000 in his childhood home. Went on to make millions. And I'm excited to see what he does next. That movie's really divisive. You're either into it or you're not. And if you are, man, is it an experience? Number 9 is Godzilla -1. From Toho Studios. This was a huge surprise for me. I like a good monster movie, love Godzilla, and didn't expect too much. And this is this very serious post-war drama looking at PTSD and found family and community and the sanctity of life, which is something the war movies often get wrong. A big surprise. Number 7 is number 8 is May December, the Todd Haynes drama that starred Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, exploring some very difficult subjects, and a movie that is ultimately about its victim, which I kind of didn't expect there, and the kind of growth that character has. Really good performances and taking on some real tough subject matter. Number 7 is The Iron Claw. We just talked about this. Phenomenal movie, very tragic, great performances, and just really dives into a lot of difficult subjects. Oppenheimer at number 6. Of course, one of the movies of the year. Love to see Christopher Nolan do his thing and kind of make people talking in rooms real interesting, because that's really what it is. It's a political drama for the most part, but it just moves along and keeps you engaged the entire time. Really impressive. Coming in at number 5, Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese's latest epic about the murders in Osage County, Oklahoma. Great performances from DiCaprio, De Niro, and newcomer Lily Gladstone, who everyone says is a big front runner for to win that leading Oscar. Number 4, Barbie, of course, from Greta Gerwig. This movie took the cinema by storm, highest grossing movie of the year, as it competed with Oppenheimer. It's amazing that they both did so well, but a very powerful film taking on women's issues and highlighting those. One of the reasons I think it succeeded is it was because it was a movie by a woman for women, which a lot of times people forget. Like, this reminds me of The Marvels. The Marvels is a movie with starring women for men. Like, superhero stuff is still aimed squarely at men and boys, and so when you tap into that female audience, you can really do amazing things. I'm really excited to see what Greta Gerwig does next, and that leads into my number 3, very similar, Poor Things, which is arguably a good companion piece to Barbie. It's a similar kind of Frankenstein Pinocchio story, starring, of course, Emma Stone, Rami Youssef, Mark Ruffalo. Really, I don't know. I really love that movie. I wasn't sure if I would, because Yorgos Lanthimos can get really strange, really weird. But I love that character's journey. It's an epic of sorts. Love the score. Love the kind of set design. The Holdover is also a huge surprise. This looked like a fine movie. Like, oh, look, it's another winter drama. Okay, and no, it's hilarious. Paul Giamatti is so funny. newcomer Dominic Sessa, who had never acted professionally in his life, was literally like at one of the school's acting programs there, was in high school. Amazing talent. Davine Joy Randolph, who everyone is saying is going to probably win the supporting actress award at the Oscars. Incredible film. And then my top film of the year, and this is my personal favorite, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which I feel I'm the only person that's going to have that up there, but I was really blown away from it. I've watched this movie like 5 or 6 times since I saw it twice in theaters. It gets me every time. The art style in the different universes, we delve into a Spider-Gwen's story has a big emotional impact, but it's our main character Miles Morales, of course, deals with not belonging. He's told he doesn't belong in this spider society, and this he's a problem, he doesn't belong, and that's really a parallel to real world places where he's being told he doesn't belong. He deals with betrayal from his friends, and it ends on, like, this was my Empire Strikes Back. Like, it ends on this big cliffhanger, and I can't remember the last time I saw something and where I was like, oh, I can't wait for the next hour of this, and then it ended and I was like, oh no, like I just wanted to see more because I was so engaged at the story. I can't wait for when that comes out. But that's my top 10 of the year. That's a whole lot of talking.
No, it feels like a whole lot of talking, but you move through it real efficiently. And also, I'm impressed at how much trivia you had on each one of those. Can I offer a couple of comments regarding your
Sure,
list while you catch your breath? I think your list is one, a good reflection of like 2023 and like just how varied like what kind of art we've gotten in theaters. Like, it is wildly, some of these are like wildly different from one another, right? Like, seeing an animated film at the top is already a surprise, but getting like a small Christmas holiday indie drama at number 2 is wild, and then Yorgos Lanthimos for number 3 is a totally different one. Also, of course, Skinamarink at the bottom, incredible. I want, for the record, for the record, I want everybody to know here, I had 11 on my list right up until we started recording because I miscounted the columns and I thought I was fine, and Skinamarink was right in the end. I've got it in honorables. But overall, rock solid list. I like your list more than my list. My list feels really mainstream in comparison. Killers, Oppenheimer, and Barbie all at the top. Good God. Like, I feel like it's like Rolling Stone magazine's top 10 of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure to, rub elbows with all the rest of film Twitter, the film bros, and try and find, measure things only for what is the most art house. But I think of things like just cultural impact and box office. I think like Barbie will have changed what the studios do moving forward, because that movie was made for $150 million and it killed at the box office. And the studios are probably going to take away the wrong lessons, but it changes things. And I knew people that saw that movie 4 times in theaters. Everyone dressed up. I remember I saw an interview with Greta Gerwig where she was like, everyone dressed up. And she didn't know why. She was like, no one told them. No one everyone got so excited. And it just made so much sense to like cosplay to this movie that it was just this massive event. And it helped revitalize the struggling box office, in a summer where everything was flopping. The Flash, Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones, all these kind of storied IPs that you would normally depend on were doing terribly, and now you get kind of this bizarro movie of a brand that everyone knows, but a story that no one does, and it worked. It's amazing.
Yeah. It is amazing. Like, it's stellar, like, how much has come out this year. Like, I think of, like, we did this podcast through the pandemic. Like, I mean, we took some weeks off for sure, but like, it was lean, man, going to the movies. And I know next year, like, we still have a ton of great releases coming out. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. But we should talk about honorable mentions. We've got quite the list of honorable mentions, things that didn't make it on here. Andy, should I go first, or do you want to take it? Where are you at?
You take your honorable mentions.
Yeah. So keen viewers of the show on YouTube, we'll see that I've been slowly filling this out while Andy's been talking. Only a couple of things, though. Starting with, in no particular order, Anatomy of a Fall. It's weird to think this isn't on the top 10. In any lesser year, it would be. It just didn't quite make it for me. I liked it a lot, but it doesn't does end up being a little lean in its first and third
It's too
act.
long.
Skinamarink,
It's just too long.
it's a little long, man. Yeah, Skinamarink again. It was top 11. If I could have had top 11 of the year, Skinamarink would have made it. I think that movie is really cool. I think the best way to watch it is in a theater. I hope local indie cinemas will run it at midnight forever. Bottoms was tremendous. Really enjoyed it. Iron Claw, I know we just watched it. Really cool. Just, man, I don't think I've had enough time to sit with it to say whether or not it's top 10 material, but it's worth mentioning. Eileen, a sleeper. I liked Eileen. I think Eileen is not
was
a
good
bad
stuff.
time. May December, which I really liked, but I didn't think would make it onto Andy's top 10. Color me impressed. Past Lives, a film that I feel like should be on our top 10s, but isn't. And then, uniquely here, Napoleon, which neither of us will mention again for the rest of this show, I don't think. I don't think Andy's got it anywhere. It is bananas. Ridley Scott's Napoleon gets no love. But, dude, you got to compete with Scorsese and Nolan this year? What are you going to do? Everybody was putting out a movie.
Yeah, you're third rank behind those two for sure. On my list, I have Suzume, which was an animated Japanese animated film we watched back in the spring. This was on my top 10 for a long time until we got kind of later in the year and more things came out. But really endearing story. Great visuals. Another animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. This came out over the summer. A lot of fun. Probably one of the better animated things that came out this year. I was shocked it wasn't nominated for Best Animated at the Golden Globes when trash like the Mario Brothers movie and Disney's Wish was. John Wick Chapter 4, a 3-hour action movie that never got boring. Somehow that franchise only got better through the 4 films, and the spin-off movie is coming next summer. We'll see what that's all about. Bottoms, of course, which starred Ayo Edebiri and Rachel Sennett, who are kind of this new powerhouse duo in indie films. A lot of fun. Not what I was expecting at all from that movie. Really enjoyed that. I recommended that to a lot. The Killer, David Fincher's latest with, of course, Michael Fassbender. Really enjoyed it. I love the 20-minute monologue about how you got to be so dedicated and so perfect only to blow the shot that kicks everything off. And it has a lot of humor like that. There's some really impressive action scenes. There's a big brawl halfway through. That's a lot of fun. Very rewatchable. Anatomy of a Fall, which I had heard so much of. I think it won like Palme d'Or at Cannes. It was the buzziest thing for a while. It is a really compelling movie. It's a courtroom drama, but man, it's like 2.5 hours long, and it wears me. It's an important movie, but it just didn't make my top 10. Past Lives, which I heard nothing but buzz about, and this actually came out, I think, hit the award circuit like in last January. So I'd been hearing about it for 8 months by the time we finally saw it, and it is an incredible first feature from director Celine Song, who was a playwright beforehand. Really down to earth movie about relationships and kind of parallel lives that happen in parallel of each other but never meet. That's a lot of people's number one film. It's a great film. It was not on my top 10. And then finally, my last honorable mention, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. One of the only like 2 really good superhero movies that came out this year. The other one being Across the Spider-Verse. James Gunn finishes this Guardians trilogy, goes out on a high note with the background story of Rocket Raccoon. Some real tragic stuff that happens in it, but it's a lot of fun. There's good action. It was it's pretty much the only good Marvel movie that came this year.
Yeah.
So Zach, where do we go from here?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the only good Marvel movie that came out this year, because my worst of the year, which is much more cynical than Andy's. Andy's is much more honest. Andy's worst of the year, I think, is rock solid, much like the rest of his list. My worst film of the year for 2023 has got to be Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I know it made money, and I know it did fine, but I think Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a unique, like, watershed moment in the Marvel franchise for me. It was the first time I was sitting in the theater watching it and going, oh my God, I can't believe this was acceptable. And we walked out of it, and I looked to the 2 people who saw it with me, which was Andy and our good friend Matt, and I said, like, they felt the exact same way. I was like, okay, we all saw it. We all saw the Emperor with no clothes. We all saw just how bad this can go. Ant-Man and the Wasp was supposed to be the next step. It was supposed to be the new chapter. It was supposed to be the plan when we got it all worked out. Now we know what we're doing, and Kang's going to be in it. And I think it will be something I continue to point at in the future, is like an example of just how wrong the House of Mouse can get it. Andy, what do you think?
It was total. Well, just to comment on that, it was total hubris. It was what people have deemed Marvel slop, where they're just started cranking out these mediocre superhero movies with mediocre B, C, D, E list heroes, and are expecting to make huge amounts. It's like, no, you got to bring back the heavies if you want people to stay interested in this genre. My worst of the year went to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which Winnie the Pooh entered public domain, and someone decided to make a horror movie based on them. And it was just real. It was like $100,000 movie. It was really bad, really low budget, really kind of exploitative too. A lot of kind of unnecessary nudity. And it was just boring. And it is getting a sequel and more money. So we'll be seeing more about that. We may or may not review it for the show.
I have a quick story about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey I want to share on the show. I've shared this with Andy privately, but it's the end of the year, and I think this should be a time of being honest with each other. So I want to be honest with you all and let you know that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is the only time I've ever snuck. It's the only time I've ever snuck Chinese food into a movie theater so I could eat it in the dark while I watch. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is basically at a AMC at a mall near me, and right in the food court there's Chinese food, and I took a flat Tupperware dish, got there a half hour early, walked to the food court, bought orange chicken, got it all in there, slipped it into my belt, between my belt and my and snuck into the theater with it and ate it with the fork, and not even that delight saved that movie. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was so terrible. It's so bad. And they're going to make another one, and they're going to make more of the schlocky Disney knockoffs. I know Steamboat Mickey is now in the public domain.
That Peter Pan.
Soon. Yep. Yeah. They're already doing a Bambi thing. I get it, but dude, it's so bad. The people who went and saw it with me were all high schoolers who were vaping and on their phones. It was just miserable the whole time. Nothing good about it, man. It is straight to Redbox trash. Don't go see it. It's so bad.
Moving on to some more disappointments. This is the list for me is actually pretty long. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Saltburn, which we'll talk about more in a second, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, The Flash, and I maybe shouldn't say this one because we're going to review it soon. Maestro is on my disappointments.
I got Maestro on mine too. Yeah, no. Go ahead.
So, well, with Shazam! Fury of the Gods, again, more superhero slop. And again, this is, yes, the DC thing is changing with James Gunn taking over. This movie was still bad. If they hadn't changed course, it wasn't going to be well received. It's somehow, the first Shazam was actually that's a fun movie. Somehow he gets stupider in this one. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a movie 20, 30 years just too late in the making. The Indiana Jones formula is just kind of dated at this point in time. A movie like that is where you would have cutting edge action sequences, and now we have so much more of that in things like John Wick. So it just, none of it worked. The story doesn't work. The artifact or mystery thereafter isn't compelling. Man, that was a huge miss. And I mean, it didn't look, at no point did that trailer ever look good, but and it was worse than I thought. You've already talked about Ant-Man 3. The Flash, I was supposed to do this what do we call it? Otherworld multiverse, sorry. Multiverse story. Instead of having, I heard this on another podcast, instead of having one annoying character as the Flash, you had two. I don't know why they decided to make the Flash the comic relief in this universe. He's kind of annoying, and you made two of them, and you made the second one even more annoying than the first one. The effects are bad. A bunch of weird cameo porn by the end, with dead Christopher Reeve showing up, George Clooney, Nick Cage. I can't think of names right now. Nick Cage.
Yeah, I know. We've been blitzing these lists. Yeah.
So bad. And then I want to touch on Saltburn. And I think Zach and I saw both this great tweet that said, Emerald Fennell, the director, is so much better than Emerald Fennell, the writer. And
yes.
And that's exactly true. The Saltburn has such style. It has really interesting characters, great soundtrack, and then just a plot that goes nowhere and kind of really misses the point of class warfare. Man, a big miss. And she gets one more out of me. And if she does it again, I think I'm done with her.
Saltburn is on my disappointments of the year too, as well as Maestro. Probably a perfect way to round this out because I just have a tighter, smaller version of what Andy's already said. But to expound on that a little bit, Saltburn has moved from what I assumed would easily be a top 10 spot to late 10s to honorable mentions to ultimately disappointments for me. It is slow, and not over like the course of watching the film, over the weeks of thinking about it since I've sat with it, because I'm so charmed by the look and the feel and the vibe of Saltburn. I want to be in that universe. Like, I want to spend time in that place. Like, I love the look of it and the feel of it. But just like its character, like, I end up becoming like deluded by this belief that like what I'm seeing is reality and that like any of this is possible. Like, ultimately it is shallow and vain and vapid, and it swings at the wrong people. Not that any movie should swing at anybody, but like it just seems like Fennell misses the mark. Like, and it's funny, like I felt similarly about Promising Young Woman with a unique ending of like having the cops show up and save the day. It's like, really? That's how we're gonna round this out? Suddenly law enforcement is valid? Anyway, like, Saltburn is weird, and while I really like the look of it, I have to accept that it's mostly due to its cinematographer, who also has shot all of Damien Chazelle's work and does really great work. Maestro, meanwhile, we need to talk about. And that's why I think this might be the perfect pivot, right? I think this might be the perfect dismount from our list so we can talk about it in full. All in all, comments on 2023, Andy, before we jump in? I mean, any last minute thoughts, recommendations? God,
I mean, I think an incredible year. I think the proliferation of film is back up to kind of normal. Well, we say that, and then we had the strikes this year, so next year's output is going to be a little bit less, I think. But 2025 is going to be great. An incredible year, I think, both in popular film and also like indie art house stuff. Just so many good stuff. We had like I said, we had a hard time keeping it to just 10. So many good things, and just fun time, great experiences in the cinema. Things like Oppenheimer and Barbie were amazing to see with a crowd. So yeah, really incredible year.
Yeah, 2023 has been a banger all around, not only in movies and games and in media, comics. Like, I think 2025 is the next big thing because a lot of these people now are moving into projects that will be finished in 2025. But keep in mind, 2024 has a lot going on in it. George Miller has a new film coming out. Denis Villeneuve has Dune 2 coming out. Bong Joon-ho has Mickey 17 coming out, right? And all of those are within like a month and a half of each other. And that's in March. Like, that's not far. At least I think Mad Max Furiosa is in March. I don't even know. Anyway.
May.
It's all close, all right? So not only has it been fantastic, there's much more to look forward to. So thanks for listening and watching 2023 with us. It's been great. And we got one more movie to talk about before we wrap it for the year. Andy, please take it away.
Maestro. So this is Bradley Cooper's not directorial debut. It's his second film after directing A Star Is Born, about the life and times of conductor, composer, pianist, American icon Leonard Bernstein, who was a very influential composer in the 50s and 60s and into the 70s, really. And the film explores his talent, his rise, but also his relationship with his wife Felicia, played by Carey Mulligan, and kind of the struggles that they had, also with him being a semi open, like either gay or bisexual man. It kind of handles that strangely. It chronicles different big moments in his life. If you don't know, Leonard Bernstein helped revitalize the American musical with the West Side Story and Candide, and he was a prolific composer. Also had TV series kind of before we had things like NPR or Mr. Rogers. He was doing things like that. You still look up these videos of him like teaching the audience about classical music in black and white. Kind of an icon of your parents or your parents' generation. There's a lot to talk about in this film. Some controversy surrounding it too. Zach, what did you think?
So I think Maestro is a movie about layers, and like it's a movie about what people see versus like what's really there versus what's maybe hiding just under the surface, right? Like it's a movie about intentions, and like I think Cooper has been kind of a little, hear me out, a little dragged through the mud by people who are like, this is pretentious, this is pompous. Because I think Star is Born has a lot of really, really great work for a directorial feature. It did fantastic. And watching Maestro, at least in the first act, I felt the same way. It feels like Cooper has stepped up his game. We're using huge lenses, right, to get these sweeping crane shots into long pull-ins of thoughtful, long take, Oscar-worthy performances, likely, like Oscar nom, maybe. The problem is, it's all so damn boring. And boy, it just doesn't it stays in the space of boring for far too long, and you end up checking your watch, and then you check it again, and you check it a third time, and you're like, oh my god, how is this movie still have a half hour left? The story of Leonard Bernstein, I think, is told in a big way. I think it's aimed.
I thought
wrong.
that like a half hour in, I was like, oh my
Dude,
god, there's so much left.
Yeah. Like it really, like, even, I should say the first probably first act for epilogue maybe is in like the prologue really is black and white before we kind of shift to color. And I got bored in the black and white part, like, and that's not even half of the film. Like, and I've seen other people saying the same thing. Like, it's an issue of pacing real bad. And he's it's hard not to pin that on Cooper, right? He's the director, of course, as well as the star. He immerses himself in the role of Bernstein. Like he's really been in this. All of the music in the film is Leonard Bernstein, right? You have all of this authentic architecture, locations, places, feelings, conversations. Like all of this has been pulled in, and it's really tremendous. But like it's just aimed off the mark a little bit and ends up being too dry. Andy, I talked way too long about this. What do you think?
I really struggled with it as well, and this movie should be right up my alley. Like I was a classical musician for almost 20 years. I got 3 degrees in classical music performance. This should be my bag, and I could have not been more bored. And the movie just can't decide what it wants to be about. Like it's kind of showing important moments in this person's life, but it doesn't really get into why he's so talented, why he was such kind of an important musician, and why he was such an important icon in American music making. It glosses over those accomplishments. Like literally in dialogue, it said, "Yeah, you wrote West Side Story, and that was incredible, really." And then you wrote this, and it's like, everyone knows West Side Story. Even if you hate musicals, you've heard of West Side Story. They've redone West Side Steven Spielberg just redid it with all that same music that he wrote, and along with lyricists with Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
And we don't really get into that of like why he's so good, why he's such an incredible artist. He just kind of is, and it's much more preoccupied with his relationship and kind of sex life. He is married to Felicia, who's an actress, and but he has male callers all throughout. But it handles this so poorly. Like it'll show him like giving a hug to a man, but it never shows those relationships. It never gives those relationships equal weight. Like his relationship with Felicia, they'll have arguments, they'll have intimate moments, they'll talk, but with the men, it handles it real PG-13, and I don't know what it's trying to say. This movie's all over the place. There's huge time jumps. You don't know what year it is. You don't know if it's been 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. It's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it genuinely feels like an issue in low-key post-production. It feels like something you might be able to edit around, because editing is important for pacing, and I think this film's biggest problem is its pacing, not only because of these multiple real long take sequences where characters are having very dry conversations, right? They're, like Andy said, are very surface because they're not really digging into what's going on. There's a lot of like talking around and speaking in like
insinuations and
yeah, and it's also a little bit older language. Bernstein has a bit of a flair when he talks, and but I think like I think in another movie you'd shoot it differently with more cutaways, and I think Cooper just opted not to do that. Like, I'm just going to shoot them real simple. I'm going to shoot a oneer of this. This is all we're getting. Maybe they shot more, but it's like I just don't know if he had the coverage to fix it later, and he just couldn't cut back and forth between Carey Mulligan and him. Instead, the camera will bring in on them for 4 minutes while they talk about something, and you're like, this is great. It's like theater. You know, it's good. But like in a 2.5 hour film, like that gets real dry real fast. And this is coming from like the guys that saw Memoria, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean this movie's nothing but problems. Bradley Cooper, his performance has been talked about a lot. There was some controversy, Nosegate, about him using a prosthetic nose to portray Leonard Bernstein. The problem with that is like most people don't know what he looked like or who he was. Like, he's not famous enough. Like I said, he's an icon of your parents' generation, and most people just don't know. He died in 1990. He's been dead a long time. Like, people just don't really know who this person is or why they're important. And this movie did not give us a good job of why that is. And I'm sure he takes on the mannerisms, and he's sat in the makeup chair for 4 hours a day before every shoot.
Yeah.
And I just don't care. There's a long sequence of him conducting Mahler 2, I think, towards the end. That's been talked about a lot. That doesn't impress me at all, because he's talked about, it took him 6 years to be able to conduct this, and I was like, sir, what took you so long? Have you tried acting? Like, anyone could like, you could go to school, you'd get a couple of music degrees in that amount of time. There's a point where you're no longer acting and you're just a practitioner. Like, if you film me while I'm playing my musical instrument, I'm not acting, I'm just doing it on camera, and that's essentially what he's doing. I just don't care. It seems like he's just trying so hard to win an Oscar, for acting. It's so try hard, and it doesn't feed the story. It doesn't, like, our narrative is just like all over the place. Like, what is this? I have no idea what this movie's about.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the antagonist? Who is the antagonist? Like, I don't know what the conflict is here, other than he can't be as out about his sexuality as he would like, I guess.
Yeah, it ends up coming off, I think, more of like an abstract observation of a life long lived. But I do want to talk about the positives, like, because there are some here, like, just like Star is Born. Like, I do think this movie is shot really well. I think it's not edited great. Like, it's just there's no cutaways. It doesn't move along in its pace. Like it's the opposite of an action scene that's over edited, right? With 8 cuts in 4 seconds. Like, it's under edited. Like, there's not enough here to move things along. Additionally, yeah, your large time jumps feel irreverent, and people leave the Netflix, wherever they're watching, feeling disconnected and lost. I do think it would have played better on a big theater, though, because like I said, there's some really incredible shots in here. Like, there's some really great work, fantastic framing. He's got an eye for it. Like, and he's working with his previous cinematographer who shot A Star is Born. I forget the man's name. But big filmography from him, so he's got good partners. I think performances are great. I do. Like, I think Cooper's got this light airiness to him. He ages into Bernstein great. I will admit with Andy, it's a bad prosthetic, because it doesn't make it not look like Bradley Cooper at all. Like, he definitely still looks like Bradley Cooper. It's not, there's never a point where I'm like, boy, that's not Bradley Cooper. Maybe I've seen too many movies, but Carey Mulligan, meanwhile, is tremendous. This is her big performance of the year. It reminds me of Anne Hathaway and Eileen, right? Like, in the way that this is the thing that she read and thought, I'm sinking my teeth into this. This is going to be huge. I've only got a bit part in Emerald Fennell's next movie. I got to make this one count. She's great. This is tremendous work. They'll probably both get a nom for it. Like, in any lesser year, they would.
She is acting circles around him. She's doing the heavy lifting, because she plays the kind of long-standing, long-suffering wife of the great genius. Like, she takes the brunt of his affairs. She maintains the facade, the family. She also tragically died of cancer, which is portrayed in the film. Like Carey Mulligan's doing an amazing job, and she's not wearing a ridiculous prosthetic. She's not conducting an orchestra, because that's not what great performances are about. She's great in this movie. This movie's almost more about her.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I do want to reiterate, A, the music's tremendous. And B, like, I really do think for what's here, like, I think Cooper left it all on the field. But what I think he left there is just not exactly what people want. I think in his mind, this like 2.5 hour, like thoughtful piece on this like life and times of this person, like I think he could watch this to, you know, five times a week if he wanted. Like, this is really great art. Like, and in that way, like, he made it for himself, and I think that's what every good artist should do. You should make art for you, you know. And then if other people come along and like it, that's where that intimate connection springs from. Like, and I believe that. I think this is Bradley Cooper's Maestro, 110%. Like, I just think it's too disconnected from like the language most of us kind of speak cinema through, right? Like, it's too slow, it's too disparate, it's too unintentional in its direction, like in its narrative direction, I should say. Like, it just misses a couple of points so finely that it ends up being a big blunder. It's like an Olympic runner tripping over the first hurdle. Like, you're just like, oh my god, like you trained, you have all of the, and it's the opposite for him because he hasn't trained that much, but it just feels like it's got so much grandeur and it's so large, it ends up feeling miscommunicated to me. That was the vibe I got. Hopefully that, I don't know. Yeah, Andy?
No, I wasn't sure what he was attempting to communicate. I'm not real sure where his character ends up by the end of the movie. It's kind of, again, it seems a little aimless. I wanted to also mention that Maya Hawke is in here as one of Bernstein's children. She might be Nepo Baby Prime because she shows up in everything and just kind of plays herself. She was in this year's Asteroid City. I think actually probably more memorable in that movie than this one.
Yeah, and I think she blends in a little better as the school teacher who falls for the singing cowboy in the play. Yeah, Maya Hawke, like, she shows up in this movie, and I definitely leaned up in my chair. Is that Maya Hawke? And then the whole rest of the movie, I thought, that sure is Maya Hawke. She's doing great. Like, they got to give her a different haircut or something. Like, she just looks like, yeah, she's right in the spot. She ends up looking the same in every movie. It's like, oh, Maya, baby, you gotta break out. But
yeah, I did want to mention
things are going on. Yeah.
Sarah Silverman, the comedian, is also in this, not in a comedic role. She actually has a very serious acting part, and I was really surprised by that. Because she's great. She's unrecognizable both in her appearance and just her mannerisms, and
Right.
It's a surprisingly good perperformance.
Yes.
I think that's all I have.
I know. I think I'm running out of steam too. One more thing I will say, just like any of these big Netflix features, like, I wish I could have seen this in a movie theater. I know that would have been a bit more disparate, but I think the visuals are really strong. Watching it at home just doesn't quite put you over. Like, I think that would have helped the experience. I wish Netflix was more engaged in that. They don't seem to really want to invest in theatrical screenings. They just kind of do them liminally. So catch them when you can. Yeah, the next time something big from Netflix comes down the pipe, even if you're not sure about it, I guess try to go see it in a theater if possible. I wish I'd seen this there. Andy, what did you think of Maestro? Sorry, would you recommend Maestro? It's been quite the episode.
Man, this is the hardest of passes for me. Like, I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained musician. Like, my teacher knew Leonard Bernstein and actually like he played on like Bernstein's Mass and like knew him personally, and like I could not get into this movie at all. The performance is whatever. He's trying so hard to win this Oscar, and he doesn't do anything that deserves it. Carey Mulligan is so much better than he is in this. The narrative is all over the place. I don't know what it's trying to say about him, about music and art. It's aimless. It feels so long. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's not super long, but it just feels like it goes on forever. It does a lot of really kind of interesting artistic shots, ways of different things that are shot, but it's just overshadowed by the story just going nowhere.
It's funny, like you mentioned the runtime because yeah, you're right. I thought it was longer, but Iron Claw is nearly the same. I think Iron Claw is actually a couple minutes longer, and it again pays so much better. Like just moves right through. You rarely ever get bored. Like it moves fantastic. Maestro ends up being a slog. Like it's not bad. It's really not. I don't think Maestro is a bad film, but I think it's perfect for the disappointment category. It just doesn't quite get where you need it to be. I still think it'll probably get nominated for Oscars. I don't know what it'll win. I've seen people saying Cooper's going to scoop the Oscar over Cillian Murphy. I would be surprised. I don't know who's going to get it, but like I think Carey Mulligan might sneak one. This would be her multiple for her. I think she already has one, maybe two. But overall, Maestro is an interesting character work. Just not quite where I needed it to be.
The other thing I'll say about Oscar stuff is like the Oscars are about what have you done for the industry, what have you done for me lately, and a movie that comes out on Netflix is generally not as well received as something that came out and was a big theatrical hit.
Well, God, that's the last episode of the year, Andy. I would say, what are we watching next week? But we're taking it off. We're getting ourselves together. When are we back?
Yeah, right. So there's a couple of weeks of not really anything coming out. So I would encourage people to catch up on anything you haven't seen. There's a whole lot of movies out. The next big releases that we'll be covering are Mean Girls and The Book of Clarence, which both come out on January 12th. So that show won't be till the 16th. But before then, we will be returning on January 9th, and we're going to cover The Color Purple and Ferrari and anything else we might see in between. We'll be taking next week off, back in a couple of weeks, with just trying to catch up with everything that's come out this year. Still have to see The Zone of Interest, which is a Holocaust drama, which probably isn't out until like February, but that's something else. So, but next week, taking off, and then back with Ferrari and Color Purple.
Like I saw that the loose translation for Zone of Interest in China was Dream Concentration Camp, which is like rad. Yeah, no, would love to see Zone of Interest. We'll cover it when it comes out. Meanwhile, I've been hearing good things about Ferrari, Michael Mann's Ferrari, mostly that it's a Michael Mann feature and that it actually has a bit more juice than appears, which is good. Big performances from Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz. Also, I'm looking forward to Color Purple. Like, not only because of what I said previous, but because of the box office. I mean, look at it. Like, it's doing well. People are talking. Scott word of mouth. It's moving. All right, I want to go see it. It's gonna be good stuff. And we'll see about Mean Girls. I don't know. Book of Clarence looks fun. Mean Girls will probably be fun. Anyway, if you enjoyed the show today, if you spent any second of just a little bit of 2023 with us, listening to us ramble about movies. If you enjoyed the top 10 of the year, maybe had some feelings on our disappointments, honorable mentions, right? Worst of the year. The best way to correspond with us is you can email us at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. Email, you say, but I listen to podcasts. I do social media stuff. Well, of course, we're in all the usual social media places. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're around. You can comment over there. You can follow. You can subscribe. You can also subscribe on YouTube, where really big things are happening for your off-script boys. I'm not kidding. Big things going on over at YouTube. We're hitting milestones. We're checking boxes. All right, big things going on. Come check us out over there. We're on all the usual podcast outlets, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. You can find us there and follow. You might be listening there right now. You can also leave a rating and review. If you have a second on your way out, right, just swing by that App Store, hit 5 stars. We really appreciate it. App Store, Review Store, wherever you review your, I got to dismount. Anyway, it's been a great year for movies in 2023, and we have really enjoyed spending it with y'all. So from all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.